I ran into my longtime crush, Charles, at the pharmacy. The moment I saw him, I got so nervous that I accidentally asked the clerk for birth control pills instead of a motion sickness medication. Charles froze. Who are they for? I pointed at myself. His eyes widened. For you? I nodded. Charles fell silent for 2 seconds, then gently placed a hand on my stomach with a very complicated expression. Men can get pregnant now. I stared at him, stunned. What? At that moment, the clerk returned and asked, do you want the long-acting or the short-acting kind? I thought for a moment. Short-acting sounded faster, so I said, short-acting. Charles paused again, his expression growing more serious. Did this happen recently? Our club was going camping tomorrow, so technically it was recent. I nodded. He looked like he had a lot to say, but his phone vibrated, so he stepped outside to take the call. I brought the medication to the register, and the clerk muttered, these aren't 100% effective. If you don't want a child, you should really use proper protection. I blinked. Child? The clerk gave me a look. You're buying birth control. What do you think we're talking about? I stared at her, stunned. Birth control? I quickly pulled out the box. No wonder it looked different from motion sickness pills. It was different, because I said the wrong name. Face burning, I handed the box back. I said it wrong. I need medication for motion sickness. Leaving the pharmacy with the correct medicine, I had mixed feelings. No wonder Charles had asked such unbelievable questions. He thought I was buying birth control for myself. I was still processing that when I looked up and saw Charles waiting outside. He hadn't left. I froze for a second. He really was handsome, the dark coat, the turtleneck, the calm and distant aura. No wonder I got so nervous I messed up my words. Got it? He asked, putting away his phone and stepping toward me. His gaze held frustration, concern, and something more complicated. You need to be more careful. I wanted to explain, but before I could, he reached out and lightly touched my stomach again. We had never been this close before. Even though I had admired him from afar for a long time, to him I was probably just a familiar junior. My emotions tangled, embarrassment, surprise, a tiny bit of happiness. He mistook that for hesitation. Henry, Charles said seriously, are you planning to handle this alone? Where is he? I blinked. Who? Charles's voice cooled. Who do you think? The person responsible, obviously. Realizing the misunderstanding was getting worse, I shook my head vigorously. No, there's no such person. Charles's expression darkened. You're still defending him. I was about to cry. No, senior, Henry. My roommate's voice interrupted. He walked over, puzzled. You're still buying the medicine. It should have been easy to find. Want me to send you the name again? Charles's expression instantly changed as he stared at my roommate. It was you. I panicked. No. I grabbed Charles's arm with one hand, covered his mouth with the other, and gave my confused roommate a smile. Senior and I have something to discuss. You go back first. My roommate nodded and reminded me, don't forget to pack tonight, we're leaving early for the camping trip tomorrow. After he left, I finally relaxed. Then I turned and found Charles staring down at me, his eyes unreadable. Sorry. I quickly let go and added, actually, I misspoke earlier. I meant motion sickness pills, not birth control. Charles's eyes were still doubtful. Really? Yes. I showed him the box. Look, compound norethane. Wait, the clerk had given me the wrong box again. I was speechless. Charles looked like he was about to explode. Arms crossed, he waited for my explanation. I really grabbed the wrong one. I'll go exchange it. But the pharmacy had already pulled down the shutter. Closed. Charles exhaled slowly. You don't have to be so tense. I won't tell anyone. Then he added gently, I know some people have special circumstances. It happens, but you shouldn't put this kind of burden on yourself. I appreciated his concern, but I really wasn't pregnant. Most shops were closed since it was late, so I pulled out my phone to search for a 24-hour store. Charles saw it, grabbed my hand, and turned off the screen. What are you doing? What? What do you think? He sounded genuinely upset and started guiding me back toward campus. In your condition, you shouldn't be running around. Go back to the dorm. My condition? I just wanted to buy a proper motion sickness pill. And don't go to the camping trip tomorrow, he continued. Not if you want to keep the child safe. I whispered, it's not about wanting to or not. It was about the child not existing at all. Back at the dorm building, I tried one last time. I'm really not pregnant. Charles frowned. Then why buy those? As far as I know, you're not dating anyone. I stared at him. He actually cared about that. As I hesitated, he seemed to draw a conclusion. Unless it was a 1TI. No. I cut him off. I just got the wrong medicine. If you don't believe me, tomorrow we can go to the hospital together. I'll do a checkup. Okay. He looked uncertain. I sighed. I know rare cases exist, but I'm not one of them. I literally cannot get pregnant. Charles lowered his eyes, something flickering in them before he nodded lightly. Fine. I'll go with you. Before leaving, he gently touched my stomach again, as if reassuring me. Whatever the result is, it's okay. I won't tell anyone. There was nothing to tell. Because of this misunderstanding, I had nightmares all night, dreams of going to a checkup with Charles, dreams where he comforted me like a father-to-be. I woke up terrified. My first reaction was to touch my stomach. Flat. Normal. Thank goodness. I thought about the dream, the closeness, the implied affection, then accidentally drifted back to sleep. This time, the dream got even stranger. I woke up again, to change into a clean pair of pants. I barely slept the whole night, and by morning I was exhausted. Since I never managed to buy proper motion sickness pills, I picked a window seat after everyone boarded the bus. I wanted to crack the window open, but winter wind was harsh and stabbing cold, so I shut it again. Everyone here? The driver asked. Wait a moment, the club president replied. Charles is coming too. 5 minutes. I opened my eyes a little, surprised. Charles was coming, but he wasn't part of our club. Still, Charles was well known on campus. Having him along was good publicity, so no one complained. Someone even joked. Is Charles coming as someone's family member? The club president glanced at his phone. That's what he called himself. Yeah. I froze for a beat, feeling oddly bothered. Family member? Did Charles have a girlfriend? With the lack of sleep and the beginning signs of motion sickness, my head throbbed. I leaned against the window and dozed until the door opened amid a small commotion. Charles stepped onto the bus wearing a black outdoor jacket. His gaze swept the seats, paused on me, and he walked straight over. Is this seat taken? He asked quietly. I shook my head without thinking. He picked up my backpack, placed it on the overhead rack, then sat down beside me. Charles nodded to the group. Sorry for the delay. The family member has arrived. Let's go. Family member? His family member? My mind blanked out. Charles waved a hand in front of my face. What are you thinking about? I instinctively caught his hand, then realized it was inappropriate and let go. Why are you here? Instead of answering, he lightly squeezed my fingers, frowning. You're hurt. Only then did I feel the sting. I checked and realized the nail on my index finger had cracked. I rushed out this morning and accidentally caught it. You're a bit careless, Charles said. Henry, you can't keep doing that. I understood what he meant. He still thought I was in a delicate condition. It's fine. I'm not pregnant. So it didn't matter if I was a little clumsy. Charles didn't reply, but something unreadable moved in his eyes. The road was bumpy and the heater too warm. My head hurt, my stomach churned. Feeling really bad? Charles leaned closer at some point, touching my forehead. Your face looks awful. Don't talk to me, I mumbled. If I open my mouth, I might throw up. His expression darkened with concern. After a pause, he reached into his bag, unwrapped a candy, and held it to my lips. Sour candy. Try it. My sister liked these the most when she was expecting. I truly wondered how someone this stubborn got into the physics department. Still, I opened my mouth. The candy was so sour my body jolted, but the aftertaste was sweet and surprisingly comforting. Seeing me swallow, Charles asked in a low voice, want another? His voice carried a tone I couldn't place. I swallowed. Sure. He unwrapped another and held it up. Open. Maybe it was the heat in the bus, but his words felt like commands I instinctively followed. My lips brushed his fingers, slightly rough. So science students really were rough around the edges. When I glanced down, I caught the small motion of his fingers, his thumb and index finger rubbing together subtly. When we arrived at the campsite, I rushed straight to the bathroom. With nothing in my stomach, I ended up only dry heaving. After splashing cold water on my face, I looked up, and saw Charles in the mirror. He walked over and rubbed my back with one hand, resting the other over my abdomen. Still uncomfortable? If you say one more thing about pregnancy, I'll doubt your academic abilities, I muttered. I won't, he said calmly. But are you sure you can participate like this? I'll be fine. I just need a moment. Then I remembered. Why did you come, anyway? Because I was worried about you, he said simply. My mind stalled for a second. He put his hands in his pockets. My concern may have been misdirected, but it wasn't unnecessary, was it? I didn't know what to say, so I laughed awkwardly. Should I feel honored? Charles chuckled softly. No need. I don't worry about everyone. What was that supposed to mean? Was he implying something? We rejoined the group. By the river meadow, the others picked out tent locations while I helped prepare ingredients. Hey! Someone tapped my shoulder. It was a girl from our club, also from the physics department. "What's up?" I asked. She hesitated, then quietly, "Can we talk?" I followed her to a quieter spot. "You and Charles, are you two together?" she asked directly. I paused, then shook my head. "No," she sighed in relief. I knew it. Charles would never date a guy. I blinked. "He's straight?" "Of course he is. You probably don't know, but someone confessed to him before, a guy, and his good friend no less." I sensed trouble. "And then, Charles punched him." She shrugged. "He really doesn't like that kind of thing." If Charles disliked same-sex affection, then why was he treating me so gently? Back at the campsite, I was threading meat onto skewers, distracted. I'd only known Charles since I entered university. Our first meeting was during the opening ceremony. The event was boring until he stepped onto the stage. White shirt, silver-rimmed glasses, he didn't even need to speak. He just stood there, and the whole hall focused on him. I sat in the front row. We accidentally made eye contact several times. Each time hit harder than the last. Eventually, I surrendered. I learned his name. Accidentally passed by the cafeteria at his hours. Even sat in on complicated physics classes just to appear familiar. And finally, he said my name. Finally, I'd earned a piece of candy from him. Maybe to him, I really was just a junior who needed looking after. After all, straight guys had a strange sense of casual closeness sometimes. "What are you sighing about?" The voice behind me startled me so much that the skewer stabbed my finger. Blood welled instantly. "Oh no, are you okay?" "Someone took the skewer from me. Go wash and disinfect it, this is raw meat." Before I could respond, someone grabbed my hand. "Charles." He held my fingertip and pulled me toward the bathroom, turned on the tap, kept my hand under cold water. "Let the blood run out first." "I can do it myself," I muttered, trying to pull back. He glanced at me but didn't argue. He stepped out briefly. After rinsing until my entire hand was freezing, I turned off the tap. I was about to look for a tissue when someone took my hand gently from behind. "Use this," Charles said, holding disinfectant. "It won't sting." I froze. "Why, did you come back?" He looked mildly amused. "Am I not allowed to?" "That's not what I meant." After treating the wound, he sighed. "Good thing you're not actually expecting. With how careless you are, it'd be dangerous." I glared at him. "You scared me first by talking behind me." He raised an eyebrow. "Then what were you thinking about?" "You sighed out of nowhere." I choked. Charles didn't let it go. Holding my hand, he lowered his voice. "Henry, what were you thinking about just now?" I couldn't exactly tell him I'd been wondering whether he was gay. "It's nothing," I deflected. "I was just thinking about whether the meat will taste good." Charles looked at me for a moment, then said lightly, "It has to taste good. After all, our Henry even got hurt." Hearing him call me our Henry made my ears heat up. "Don't call me that." Charles didn't stop. "Other people can call you that but I can't." I had nothing to say and could only walk out of the restroom with burning ears. Outside, the grill was already going, and people were gathering in groups. Charles was a popular figure. He'd barely arrived before the club president dragged him away. I went to sit beside my roommate. The moment I sat down, my roommate leaned in, eyes sparkling. "Senior Shen is finally back." Noticing his gossipy expression, I sensed something was up. "Were you waiting for him?" He snickered. "I overheard Orion talking to the president. She asked if they could add some flirty games. I think she wants to confess today." "Orion, so that was the same senior who told me earlier that Charles was straight." My heartbeat stumbled for half a second. It took me a while to find my voice again. "I see." My roommate was excited. "Look, it's starting." With so many people, the most popular flirty game was clearly the king's game. The president handed out cards and looked at his own, laughing. "I'm the king this round." Everyone split into two groups, single and not single. "That'll make the next step easier." Everyone understood what he meant and split up laughing. Orion naturally sat beside Charles, in the single group. I also stood in the single group, far from Charles. The president nodded in satisfaction. "All right, number 3 Princess Carrie, number 7. That pair was a couple anyway. They didn't just do a Princess Carrie, they practically hugged and kissed, instantly heating up the atmosphere. The rounds grew more and more daring. Until the 4th round, when Orion became the king. Her cheeks flushed slightly as she looked at Charles. "Number 9, for the next 30 seconds, no matter what I say, you must answer, okay?" Charles glanced at her and raised his hand. "Sorry, I'll drink this round." The room fell silent for a moment. Orion's face paled. "I won't make you agree to anything unreasonable." "I know," Charles said gently. "I'm just not used to doing what others tell me." The president tried to smooth things over. "Charles, Orion won't push the line. And you can't get away with just one drink, you know?" He pointed to the mixed alcohol. This stuff is strong. It's fine, Charles repeated. I'll drink. He downed 3 cups. The room erupted again, but my heart clenched. Mixed drinks were dangerous, and Charles had drunk a lot. Next round, cards were reshuffled. This time, Charles became the king. He looked at his card and seemed to smile. Maybe it was the alcohol, but his smile looked different, almost mischievous. Well then, he drew out the words as his gaze landed straight on me, deep and sharp, like a silent hook pulling at my heartbeat. Number 12, for the next 30 seconds, no matter what I say, you must answer, okay. The room exploded. People looked at Orion's expression before searching for number 12. Number 12? Who's 12? I looked at my card, 12. For a moment, I could only feel disbelief. How did Charles know my number? Or was it just coincidence? In the noisy room, I slowly raised my hand. Me. As I walked over, Charles's smile deepened. He looked at the president, who nodded. 30 seconds start now. Charles lowered his eyes to me. On the way back later, sit with me. Okay. Tomorrow's checkup, go with me. Okay. For electives next semester, be my desk partner. Okay. Anne. Charles suddenly leaned down, lowering his voice to my ear. When we get back, let's play another 30-second game. You give the orders this time, and I'll respond. I stared at him, not quite processing his meaning. Charles nudged me. Say okay. Okay. 30 seconds. The president ended the round. What did Charles ask you? He whispered nosily. Your face is red. Charles only smiled and put an arm around my shoulders. Secret. The games went on until late afternoon before we headed back. Charles boarded the bus first and looked at me. I understood and walked toward the seat beside him, but someone tugged my sleeve. Junior. Orion glanced at me. I get carsick. Can I have the window seat? I looked around. The bus had no other window seats left. I glanced at Charles. He was looking at his phone and didn't speak, so I stepped back. Go ahead. She thanked me and sat next to Charles. The bus smelled like warm air and alcohol, making me queasy. Henry, find a seat, the president said unsteadily, patting the spot beside him. Sit here. I hesitated. Beside me, Charles suddenly stood, grabbed my wrist, and pulled me toward the door. The president blinked. Where are you two going? We're about to leave. Charles lifted his phone. Henry gets really carsick. I called a car to take him back. We're not riding with you. After getting off, I was still confused. I turned to ask Charles, but he let go of my wrist and started tapping on his phone. I thought he was contacting the driver, so I didn't speak. After a moment, he sighed and pinched my cheek. Nothing to say. Planning to stand here forever? I tilted my head. Aren't you texting the driver? He turned his phone toward me. He wasn't texting, he was writing notes. Henry doesn't keep his promises. Henry is a dummy who won't talk. I blinked. Maybe he was a little drunk. What's the last line? I pointed. Charles lowered his eyes, his voice deep. Henry is. A car honked nearby, drowning out the rest. I turned to look. The car he'd called had arrived. Come on. I nudged him inside. It's late. We still have more than an hour. On the road, I kept my eyes closed, still dizzy. Surprisingly, Charles stayed quiet. I peeked and saw he had actually fallen asleep. So 3 drinks really were his limit. I couldn't help laughing quietly. I moved my knee just a little, leaning carefully against him, then closed my eyes again. I was woken up by Charles. When I opened my eyes, I was still a little dazed. I hadn't expected myself to fall asleep at all. We're here already. Charles handed me a bottle of water. 10 more minutes. Wake up a bit, or you'll feel cold getting out later. Oh. I held the bottle blankly. Charles was quiet for a while before suddenly asking, why did you give your seat to Orion? I blinked. Didn't she say she gets carsick? Charles stared at me. Did she look carsick on the way there? I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to her. Charles looked like he was choking on words. After a pause, he muttered, you get carsick too. I thought about it and patted the car seat. But you brought me into a private car. Charles didn't say anything for a moment. Then, half exasperated and half resigned, he pinched my cheek. You always have a reason for everything. After getting out of the car, Charles wanted to walk me back to my dorm. I waved my hands repeatedly. No need. I'm not a girl. Charles clicked his tongue. It has nothing to do with being a guy or a girl. Then what does it mean? Go back. Your dorm is the opposite direction. He pinched my cheek again. Under the streetlight, his eyes were gentle. It means, it's because you're Henry. Wherever Henry is, I'll walk him there. East, west, north, south, every direction is on the way if it's for you. I had a very strong feeling Charles was trying to pursue me. As soon as I returned to my dorm, Charles sent me a screenshot, an appointment for a medical checkup. I froze for a second, remembering how I joked that he should go do a checkup if he didn't believe me. I didn't expect him to take it seriously. Fine. I guess a routine checkup wouldn't hurt. The next morning, a little after 7, someone knocked on the dorm door. It was the weekend, all my roommates had gone home, so I was alone. I quickly washed up and opened the door. As expected, it was Charles. He stared at me for a moment before greeting softly. Morning. I let him in. You're really early. Isn't the appointment at 9? You need to fast for it, so I didn't bring breakfast. I waved it off. I don't usually eat breakfast anyway. Charles frowned, clearly unhappy about it. The checkup finished close to 11. Since the report would only be available in the afternoon, Charles took me out for lunch first. We're eating again. I bit into the pastry he bought me. This is fine, really. Enough to get by. You didn't eat breakfast, now you don't want lunch. Planning to become immortal? He said sharply. I opened my mouth to retort, but he continued. Your malnutrition and low blood sugar are because of your habits. Do you want to faint again at school? I froze. How do you know about that? Half a month ago, I really had fainted from low blood sugar, but it happened in our department's building, very far from his. Charles pulled me to my feet. If I want to know something, I'll find out. I narrowed my eyes. Charles, are you? Charles, what a coincidence. A stranger suddenly blocked our way. I peeked around Charles. It looked like a university student. Clean cut. Seemed familiar with Charles. But Charles clearly didn't feel the same. He stepped back and said coldly, "Get lost." Both the guy and I froze. Charles was always polite, elegant, composed. I had never heard him swear, let alone tell someone to get lost right in the face. It was almost chilling. The guy let out a bitter laugh. Charles, you really hate me that much, huh? Charles ignored him completely and pulled me away. Hey, classmate. As we passed, the guy tugged my sleeve and narrowed his eyes. Are you Charles's boyfriend? Stop trying to get involved. Charles pulled my hand back immediately, expression icy. Stay away from him. All right. The guy lifted his hands in surrender, then smirked at me. But classmate, let me give you some advice from someone who's been there. Don't fall too hard for Charles. He's ruthless when he turns cold. Charles stayed silent all the way until we left the hospital. Only when we were seated in the restaurant waiting for food did he speak again. Don't you have anything to ask me? I thought for a moment. Orion said a guy once confessed to you. Someone close to you. Was it him? Charles nodded. His voice turned cold. Yes. We used to be close. Even roommates. I hesitated. Then why? Because he drugged me. Charles's tone darkened completely. He tricked me into going to a bar and spiked my drink. That's why our friendship ended. I inhaled sharply. This wasn't just ending a friendship, not sending the guy straight to jail was mercy. As if reading my mind, Charles patted my head. He did go to jail. 10 days. Serves him right. Anger flooded through me. I clutched Charles's hand tightly. He didn't do anything else to you afterward, right? No. He took a break from school. This year is the first time I've seen him again. My emotions were a tangled mess, anger, sadness, and something deeper, harder to name. Charles tapped my cheek lightly. What's with that face? You look like you could bite someone. I scowled. How does he even have the nerve to talk to you? People don't run out of nerve that easily, Charles said calmly. It sounded like he was implying something, but I wasn't sure what. He smiled faintly. Just a recent realization. After lunch, we returned to the hospital for the results. Other than low blood sugar and mild chronic gastritis, I was fine. Of course, the part about pregnancy was impossible anyway. Charles stared at the report, looking almost disappointed. Already used to his indulgence toward me, I tapped his head lightly. What's with that expression? Charles froze, then chuckled. He wrapped an arm around my waist and pulled me into an empty emergency stairwell. Being bold now? I shrank back. I wasn't. Charles braced one arm behind my waist, the other holding the report. Look at you. Not eating properly, no routine at all. Something about his expression felt strange. I narrowed my eyes. Wait, is that why you insisted I get the checkup? The more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Charles obviously knew men couldn't get pregnant, yet he still forced the idea of a checkup, just to make me do a full health exam. Charles let out a soft hum. Caught red-handed. I stared at him. You could have just told me. Why make me think something was wrong with your head? I didn't have a reason. Charles lowered his eyes slightly, sounding almost aggrieved. What position do I have in your life to tell you to take care of yourself? After you fainted, I kept thinking about it, he said quietly. I didn't want you to keep treating your body like this. He then started listing my offenses. Skipping breakfast, eating irregularly, being picky with food, drinking cold drinks, staying up late, and even pulling all-nighters. The more he said, the more shocked I felt. How did he know all this? Charles saw my expression and chuckled softly. There aren't that many coincidences in the world, Henry. I wanted to see you. I froze. Something inside my chest snapped and resonated. My lips moved. You. I like you, Henry. Charles looked at me, deep affection swirling in his dark eyes. The cafeteria you always go to is nowhere near my dorm. The class you audited doesn't even allow auditors. Your appearances in the building never matched my schedule. It's only because I like you that I tried so hard to create moments to say, what a coincidence, we meet again. I stared at him blankly, completely speechless. Liking someone was strange. Being looked at like this made joy rise uncontrollably. Henry. Charles waved a hand in front of my face, sounding unusually nervous. Give me something. A reaction. Say something, I'm getting anxious. I couldn't hold back a laugh. So even Charles gets nervous? Of course. He stepped closer, voice low. Anyone would be nervous in front of the person they like. Just like that day at the pharmacy, trying to calm his heartbeat, only to hear the person he liked asking for contraceptives. A shock so sharp he nearly thought he would lose Henry. But thankfully, everything was just a misunderstanding. Everything was still in time. I was about to speak when Charles suddenly leaned down, brushing a feather-light kiss against my lips. Sorry, he whispered, voice rough. I couldn't hold back. I finally laughed. Tilting my head up, I asked softly, do you remember what you said during the Kings game? I remember, Charles murmured. You said it, and I agreed. 30 seconds, I teased. Want me to time it? Charles's fingers brushed my cheek tenderly. No need. Whatever you say, I'll agree. That rule never expires. I held his gaze and spoke quietly. From now on, be my boyfriend. Okay. From now on, like me more every day. Okay. This very second, lower your head and kiss me. Charles laughed softly, leaned down, and kissed me, warm, gentle, and sure. Okay, Henry. Between kisses, his voice reached me, blurred and breathy. Half opening my eyes, I answered, Charles pulled me into his arms, and our heartbeats pressed together. Henry, no matter what you're like, I'll like you. I blinked, then smiled, falling into warmth and affection. This time, I heard it.
Alright, let's talk about this story because honestly, it's one of the most entertaining misunderstandings I've seen in a long time. What makes it so good is how confidently it leans into chaos. The entire plot begins with one tiny slip of the tongue, one wrong word at a pharmacy, and suddenly our main character Henry is somehow possibly pregnant, in the eyes of the one person he desperately wants to impress. And from that moment on, the misunderstandings snowball with almost comedic determination. But here's the clever part, the story never loses its emotional core. Charles isn't just a cold, handsome campus legend, he's surprisingly earnest, overly responsible, and unintentionally hilarious in the way he tries to take care of Henry. Every wrong assumption he makes reveals a little more about how deeply he cares. And Henry. He's the perfect balance of awkward, relatable, and unintentionally adorable. His reactions feel real: panic, embarrassment, a bit of wishful thinking, and that's what keeps us hooked. You don't just watch the misunderstanding, you feel it with him. That said, the story isn't flawless. Some twists rely heavily on convenience, a few side characters pop in solely to stir the pot, and the confusion lasts a bit longer than necessary. But honestly, those imperfections almost add to the humor. The charm here comes from that blend of sweetness, panic, miscommunication, and the slow burn of mutual affection. And when everything finally comes together, when Charles stops hiding how much he cares, when Henry stops running from his own feelings, the payoff is satisfying, warm, and absolutely worth the chaos that led there.